Thank you, Henry. Thank you, Johanna. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So in the wake of practicing with no agenda, no plan, no plot, no design, Henry and I are offering today's talk as an experiment, a duo of sorts with no rehearsal. We began with a kind of fluid idea that we would take up a koan, possibly a pair of koans, each speaking a bit and then having some back and forth. And then this evolved into I'm going to visit with perhaps two masters whose experiences particularly resonate with each other and with us, with this so-called theme of peace in our time. And then I think Henry will bring us back full circle with more on Mu. It's impossible to leave Mu, always possible and endlessly helpful, fertile to clarify. Again, when I heard that Henry had this in mind, Ungan came up. Go straight toward it and be utmost precise. So about 3 weeks ago, Ruben Habito Roshi gave the Thursday evening talk at Mountain Cloud. The jumping off point for his talk was Eka, or Wicca, who stood outside of Bodhidharma's cave, begging for teaching on behalf of all beings. Once inside, Eka faces Bodhidharma. My mind is not at peace. I beg you, Master, give it rest. Bodhidharma responds, bring me your mind, and I will give it rest. The rest is history. History right now. That exchange is recorded in the Mumonkan, case 41. The two ancestors that follow Eka, Sosan and Doshin in Japanese, come down to us as cases 30 and 31 in the Denkoroku, or transmission of light. Just briefly, in the year 1300, Master Keizan, the Dharma great-grandson to Dogen, compiled 53 cases in a year. He spent a year giving teisho on each one, and then he published these together with a verse that he wrote for each case. Transmission of light, inviting us to see our real life, to see and be illumined by all things. What is the light that's transmitted? It's right there where you sit, shining like the clear blue sky, like the noonday sun, like a clear blue gem radiating the late day western light. Sozan and Doshin come up now, especially because their bindings, the constraints they suffer, are so near to us. Their stories are also familiar to most of us. So I'd like to spend, or maybe just touch on Sozan, visit with him a little, and then I don't know say whatever I can about Doshin. He is hovering here with us at any rate. Sozan, or Zenkan, this successor to Eka, died in 606, is a lay person who's afflicted with a disfiguring skin disease. He comes to Eka and says, "My body has been racked by a terrible illness. Please help me absolve the transgressions or the sins that I've committed that have caused this." Another translation, "The body of your disciple is entwined with wind illness," that's leprosy. "I beg you, Master, absolve me of my sins. Please cleanse me of whatever I have done to cause this, to deserve it, to bring it on myself. Release me from the claim this has on me. Take away this burden, the anathema of being who I am. Heal me, fix me, make me whole." Sozan is sick, but his real illness, the disfigurement that we so readily recognize, is his sense of blame, of lack, of needing to be other than he is in order to be whole. I want to bow to Sozan for presenting not just his body, but his heart, not just his condition, but the human condition, for dropping any pretense and offering up what this Zen tradition calls those three poisons. We're familiar with the litany. Something is lacking in me. Who I am is not enough. Or I don't want, don't like, this is unacceptable. I am unacceptable. Take this away, add something, make me whole. More than once, I've heard a student question having the capacity to awaken. Maybe other people can come to experience, but I just lack what it takes. Lack. The capacity to awaken is not something you have. It's what you are. So capacious. Our doubt shows up in a lot of ways. Most perniciously in the ways we judge or criticize ourselves or others. Actually, every time I judge anyone, I'm judging myself. One of the key instructions for sesshin, also a reminder for every time we sit, is to just put aside all judgment. What basis is there for it? This random dividing, setting the self against itself. Let it dissolve. Let the silence, that capacious silence, fill every gap. With the lesions in his skin, Sozan is wearing his self-doubt, his self-incrimination, inside and out. He's lost, as if miles from home. "Where's the compass?" one student asked. The student had been sitting deeply with this line, this phrase that comes later from the awakened Sozan. If there is only a hair's breadth of difference, it is the distance between heaven and earth. That compass. Please, Master, help me. Eka says, "Bring me your sins and I will free you of them." And the case, says Sozan, sat for a while. How long might that have been? Goes and sits with the question, how to bring his sins. Where are they? What are they? One reason I read from Frances Bennett yesterday is that I recently shared the book, or part of it, with a student who, deep into practice, was suddenly beset again by the mangled twists and turns of a wounded past. I was reading Bennett, and with no idea if it might help, I sent the passage about absolute surrender. The polished blade of a bare sword. The student got it, heard it. He wrote back about Sozan. Absolute surrender. Really look into, where are my sins? No one can do that for you, give you that, he wrote. Falling away, falling into here, this. He wrote, the tradition speaks of Mu as an iron cliff, a steep mountain, a sword, but it can also be so soft, gentle, intimate, just the invitation. When awakening comes, you awaken to who you are, exactly as you are. Sozan comes back to Eka, I have searched for my sins but cannot find them. Really? Eka says, then I have already finished absolving your sins. Already accomplished. Already whole. Sozan comes home to himself right there in the searching. Complete. The great relief. Sins gone, Sozan gone. Separation dissolved. Sozan disappears and the whole world comes rushing in. There's a Catholic sister who took up Zen deeply and had an experience and shared that she went into her teacher and said, I am innocent. At the moment of seeing, realizing, coming home to the clarity that cannot be defiled, simultaneously, boundless compassion comes forth. Just compassion. Sozan is widely thought to be the author of the Shenjin Mei. We hear about this affirming faith in mind, verses on trusting the heart mind, verses on the heart of trust. And that first line, the line Joshu often quoted, that we've been hearing about it again and again, it's etched on our hearts, or at least in our memory. The great way is not difficult if only you do not choose. Later in the verse comes this line, a description of what happened to Sozan. Just calmly see all unity, and false views vanish by themselves. then still later in the poem, whatever comes up, immediately not to. Turns out I don't really have time for two. So with bows to Doshin, oops. I just like to say one word.
Sorry, I missed that. Oops. Did you say?
Sorry, my alarm. Doshin is the master who comes to Sozan begging for liberation. And Sozan asks him, who is binding you? Who is binding you? Not just what are the bindings, who is doing the binding? And that whole scene unfolds. Sozan, or Doshin, then has this famous teaching, last word. His students recorded this and passed it on. From the one who begged for liberation, who looked for who is binding you. Doshin writes, all things are liberated. It is not merely that all things are empty, or all things are all things. All things are empty. All things are all things. But all things are liberated. With that, I think I'll pass this to Henry.
Thank you very much indeed, Valerie. What a chalice to receive. Yeah, please feel free to change your position. I'm going to stand up a moment. You might want to join me. Just stand a moment. And stretch, turn around, whatever feels helpful. Roll around if you're on the floor, and then, or a nice couch or bed, and then let's come back down. Okay. Doshin, yeah, the fourth Chinese ancestor. So Eka Waker was the second, and then the third was Sozan, as we've just been hearing. He had leprosy or something like it, something that really disfigured him. And also had this notion common that it was a sort of retribution for transgressions committed, an expression of wrongness. And therefore needed to be absolved of something. Tried to find what it was and couldn't find it. And realized that there was nothing to find. Freed, liberated, not by an agent of liberation, let's note. Not that there's an agent of liberation. It's freed by seeing through the agent of binding, the agent of of wrongness. So when the baton is passed to Doshin, Doshin, you know, is he freed by finding the agent of liberation? No, he's freed by finding the agent or the imagined agent of binding. we all know the name of that. We've done enough practice by now to know what we're talking about. You know, basically, this sense of self, you know, is what prevents us from knowing, experiencing our, our non-separation. Non-separation, you know, with anything and with all things. And, you know, if we go a bit deeper than non-dual, we get to the real sort of, so to speak, source of non-dual, or the reason for it, which is, you know, it's really a thorough deconstruction of how we construct reality. And we don't find, when we've deconstructed it, various pieces, you know, when we've really deconstructed it, there's nothing. There's no self and there's no world. Valerie read that beautiful account of one of our Dharma brothers, you know, Brian, having this very clear awakening, seeing, you know, there, what did he say? There was nothing, or there is nothing. And that seems to be a note that many in some traditions of I think especially probably Buddhism and Zen, and actually Taoism, they find. I don't know that all traditions have got that in their DNA, actually. It's all contemplative traditions. I don't know. Some don't seem to, but perhaps they do. So how do we get freed in the way that Doshin does? Well, you know, the common way in our Zen path is with Mu. Mu actually is not an agent of freedom. It's a deconstruction agent. And I'm going to read a little bit from a book that I've been privileged to read actually by David Hinton. Privileged because it's not yet out, it's coming out quite soon, called China Root. And it's about essentially it's about the Taoist origins of Chan or Zen. And so I'm just going to read a couple of bits. Here's one. Lao Tzu uses the term Tao or way to describe the empirical cosmos as a single living tissue that is inexplicably generative in its very nature. Belonging to this magical tissue made the world of immediate experience wholly mysterious and wondrous and sufficient in and of itself. You know, to discover our belongingness to this single generative tissue makes experience mysterious and wonderful and sufficient. There's no longer a need to invest reality with imagined dimensions of the sacred or the divine. If we actually find this moment, by the way, you know, you've gathered this, I'm sure, but what are we? We're really present moment analysts. We're students of this moment, of now. We don't find anything except what's present here and now. We're not studying some great ultimate reality. We're studying this moment. It's all we've got. And we're studying it. We're given a path to entering it and knowing it more deeply. That's the point of all this practice, is really to discover this moment. And to do that, we have to apparently let go of some very common preconceptions. And the biggest and most pervasive and most, in a way, hard to track assumption that we make is that I'm in here watching all this, experiencing all this. Doesn't matter whether it's a sound outside, a thought in my head, a pain in my knee. They're all things that are outside me. I am the one who is separate from them and is receiving them as experience. And that is precisely the one thing, the one hair's breadth of difference that prevents us joining this generative tissue, as Taoism in Hinton's version puts it. Now, what is that generative tissue? I'm going to quote another bit. In its primal generative nature, the Taoist cosmology assumes a more elemental experience of time, not linear, the familiar metaphysical river flowing past, nor even cyclical. Instead, it's an all-encompassing, generative present that might be described as an origin moment or origin place, a constant burgeoning forth in which the 10,000 things emerge from the generative source, which is in fact absence. Absence burgeoning forth into presence. As we will see in many different ways, inhabiting this origin moment, this absence, as it burgeons forth into presence, is the abiding essence of Chan practice. So what has Mu got to do with all this? Well, a lot, absolutely. It's got a great deal to do with it. Mu practice. By the way, Hinton has this nice phrase. He calls it Chan's wrecking crew, or Zen's wrecking crew. Zen teachers going around wrecking, deconstructing. They've got a great big wrecking ball. That wrecking ball, actually these are my words, not his, is Mu. It swings, you know, at the end of the crane, crashing into the house called me. You know, actually, I loved the quote Valerie was just giving of the softness and gentleness of Mu. And I'm sorry to so abruptly swing to the wrecking ball image, but that is another image of Mu, and it's not wrong. Both are absolutely beautifully right. And so just, I wanted to just come back a moment to Mu and to the dialogue. You know, the dialogue as we know it is that does a dog have Buddha nature? Mu. Which literally means something like not, negative. Buddha nature, not. You know, there was that phase in the, was it in the 90s when it was a sort of funny thing, to say not, at the end of something like nice, not, Buddha nature, not. Dog Buddha nature, not. Have I got Buddha nature? Not. It's sort of really, it's sort of something like that. Why not? If we look at it on that level, why not? Well, because what is Buddha nature? If Buddha nature, we heard yesterday, Tao, Buddha nature, Buddha Dharma, Dharma nature, way, Buddha, in Zen's wrecking crew, all one fact, boundless fact, all Mu. So no dog, if you're asking about Buddha nature, dog's gone. On that level, no dog, absence. But at the same time, that's not enough. That's not the end of the program. That's a thing that's a phase, a stage, a glimpse, a discovery, an experience we might have. We hope we will have, actually. All gone. All gone. It sounds so terrible, but it's so wonderful. You know, because you're gone too. It's really, truly a kind of death, rightly called death. But it's not over. Just as Valerie was saying, you know, all things are empty. All things are all things. All things are liberated. Just this is just totally all and free and gone all at the same time. So, you know, you pick up a pen and you can marvel at it. You can ponder. You can actually, if you ponder what goes into the arising of a pen, you know, you can realize very quickly that it's got ancient forests, giant trees, ancient prehistoric, very, very large trees, you know, like the redwoods or greater, but 300 million years old. They're right here. You obviously have all the rain and swamplands and dead things in the soil that allow those trees to grow. You have a lot of people doing a lot of work to drill oil, refine it, get into the plastics business. You know, and they've all been eating and they've all been breathing, and every molecule of air that you breathe has been breathed 4,000 times before, 4 billion times before. You know, you can very quickly think your way to realizing that, you know, you just pick up a pen and there's very little that you're not touching, actually. You know, is there anything really that you're not touching when you touch the pen? But the point of Mu, of Zen experience, is that you don't think it. You actually see it. You see it unmistakably, that this pen is all. And there's no thought involved at all. In fact, you discover it only when thought is gone. It's not enough for thought to be gone, but only when thought is gone completely, gone right through thought, is there a chance of actually seeing this. And the point of this practice is not to think it, but to see it, to discover this is real, this is true. That's the point of this practice. Mu, Mu is, you could say, it's a stand-in. You could say that. It's a stand-in for a pen. You could say it's a stand-in for Joshu. You're having Dokusan with Joshu when you sit with Mu. But then Joshu actually is a stand-in for Tao. You're having Dokusan with Tao when you sit with Mu. Actually, you're having Dokusan with Tao when you open your eyes in the morning and before you open your eyes in the morning. You're having a direct meeting, a teaching meeting. Whatever you do. This moment is the teaching moment, the teaching meeting. Mu is just a help in sort of focusing us on that, in waking us up to that fact. When we're exhaling Mu, we're actually meeting all teaching face to face. Do you need Mu to do that? Well, no, actually, you don't. Sorry, those of you who've done years of Mu. You don't have to, really. But why do we do it then? Well, because it's beautiful. It's marvelous. It works. It doesn't work predictably, but it helps. It really, really helps. Because and because it's also, it's an entryway to actually a way of examining more deeply this moment than we would likely come up with ourselves. And not just examining it, but having seen right down to the bottom of it, then actually having some help and guidance in how to sort of come back to life and live in a new way. Something like that. It's not just the seeing through. I want to touch on one other point, when Joshi's asked, does a dog have a nature? Another time he answered differently. He said, ooh, which means something like affirmative. It has. It is. It has. What are we to make of that? Does a Buddha nature? Not. Buddha nature? Yes. Can you see how that isn't at all contradictory? Not in the slightest. Buddha nature, mu. Buddha nature, u. If you can't yet, that's great. Tremendous. Tremendous. We want a prick of a dilemma pointing at our hearts. We want to feel the tip of the sword, actually, right at our throat. Ooh, moo, moo, ooh. Okay, so on that cheery note, I think I'm just looking at my notes actually, see if I can get a sort of more positive. Well, it couldn't really be more positive, actually, really, what I'm talking about could not be more positive. I really seriously hope you can get a sense of that, that to be, we're talking about infinite freedom. About boundless freedom here and now, and just perfectly easy, not sort of some. I want you to get this. This isn't some. It's not some sort of lofty attainment. This is easy. I mean, the truth is, it may not be that easy to find it somehow, to really experience it clearly. But it is actually easy. It's a path of ease. I remember once hearing a Zen teacher in a film actually saying, no self-living is hard living, she was saying in a documentary film. And I just thought, no, that's absolutely wrong. And I was young when I heard that. But something in me, really sort of felt yuck. And now, years on, I don't feel yuck, but I still feel, no, not true. Not true at all. I don't think she really knew what she was talking about, I'm sorry to say. I don't know who she was, but, it's not right. It's not right. I mean, but what is true is that it is, I think, quite hard to really get clear about it. And we got that famous Pang family dialogue, is the way is very, very hard. It's like climbing into a tree with 50 pounds of linseed oil on your back. That's the dad. And then the mum says, maybe I've got it the wrong way around. Maybe that's the mum. And then the dad says, no, the way is easy. It's just like waking up and putting your feet on the floor. And then the daughter says, the way is not easy. The way is not hard. There's 100 Buddhas on every tip of glass, every tip. There's 100 Buddhas on the tip of every blade of grass. Or maybe it's just one Buddha on the tip of 100 blades of grass. Have I got that right, Valerie? Approximately? It's something close enough. It's something like that. A Buddha on the tip of every blade of grass. Yeah, Buddha on the tip of every. Not easy, not hard. That's of course, she wins. The daughter wins. You know, she gets the golden ticket. Okay, so may we all take heart. Not easy. Definitely not easy. You're not alone in finding it not easy. But also not hard. Not hard. Really, effort may not pay off. Don't worry. Don't worry. It's not really hard. If we're striving, really striving, I mean, it's honorable and nice and noble to have certain desperation in our fiery struggle and all that. But actually, at the same time, it's not hard. It's not hard. And in a certain way, I think when you really find it, it's not such a big deal. It'll seem a big deal for a while because it's all so stunning and new and strange and marvelous. But, you know, we want that to really sort of settle down. And it's not so marvelous. It's not so remarkable. It's just this. It's just this. It's okay. Easy. Easy. Not hard, not easy. Fine. Fine. You know, I'd like you all to taste that. And I don't think you need great awakenings to, by the way. Just this very enjoyable ease and clarity in sitting. Sometimes, you know, we got to crank it up apparently and strive very hard. And I don't know though. You know, maybe we don't have to. At least that's not the end of the road. There is no end of the road, fair enough. But actually, there are sort of significant junctions in the road, let's say. There are significant brows that we do seem to get over. And on the way, you're allowed to have a sort of leisurely time. It's, you know, they always talk about the leisure of the way. Don't you see that leisurely one of the way? She's not striving in any way. Is the start of the Song of Realization by Yoko Daishi, another great Zen poem. And that sort of leisureliness is not like, oh God, I've got to work so hard in order to get this leisureliness. No, it's part of the way to the way. So I want you to enjoy yourself, you know, while you're, you know, having an honorable quest, which is quite right and definitely honorable, but at the same time, just see if there's some little corner in the back of your mind that's just whispering, not such a big deal. Not such a big deal. And see if that helps. You know, just a little note of daughter pang. Yeah, it's hard, but it's also easy. Not hard, not easy. And then mum saying easy, dad saying hard. Who knows, really? Hopefully you get in an awful muddle. You don't know if it's easy or hard. Good. Okay. Thank you very much, Valerie. And thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much, Luke, Johanna, Bernd, and onward, all our, and Zoom, the Zoom magicians. Thank you very much for enabling this gathering in this way. So now let's have a